Hello all, very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Future of CX in 2022 panel discussion. My name is Karthik Rajaram and I'm the country head for Freshworks India. I'm excited to have a very esteemed panel with us. They are practitioners who are at the forefront of driving innovation in their organizations. I'm going to try and pick their brains and get a peek into how they are thinking through this and more importantly, what they are doing to stay ahead of the curve in this new world. I'm going to quickly introduce our esteemed panel. I'm going to start out with Anand Tuli, who is the head of analytics and decision sciences at Vedantu. We have Abhishek Chandra, who is the VP and head of customer experience, customer success, and renewals at Topper. We have Pranshu Rastogi, who is the general manager of customer experience at Jubilant Foodworks. We have Hina Chaplu, who is the CX head at Kotak Securities. And last but not the least, we have Angad Vadia, who is the head of merchant risk compliance, fraud reduction operations, and customer experience and excellence at Mobiquik. Welcome, respected panelists. So in the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to try and accomplish broadly three things. One is we're going to deconstruct 5 trends around consumer and business behavior that will define 2022 and beyond. We're going to learn how some of these is going to drive customer loyalty and empower employees to become agents of delight. And lastly, we're going to see some examples of brands that are adapting this to stay ahead of the curve. Talk to any customer experience leader today, and they'll tell you how difficult it is to deliver great CX. And they'll also tell you how tremendously filled with opportunity this situation is. The pandemic has accelerated the blurring of digital and offline experiences to the point now that many shoppers no longer differentiate between the two. Customers have accustomed to new ways of engaging, their expectations have only increased, to which organizations are responding very actively and proactively. It is no longer enough to just provide one channel of experience. Brick and mortar stores are blending omnichannel experiences and becoming hubs for fulfillment, distribution centers, and customer support. Customer service agents are taking up the roles of sales associates, helping customers make purchase decisions. Next slide. Yeah. So the trend that we're going to see, one which is something which is very obvious, no-brainer, is that the new wanted now culture dictates terms, right? In 2022, due to the pandemic safety measures across the globe, customers had to quickly get used to transacting with their favorite brands online. The shift to digital channels meant that they also had begun to expect faster service from customers. We surveyed about 4,500 businesses and analyzed about 107 million customer transactions, which validated this trend. With an ever-increasing frequency of digital purchases, become absolutely critical to embrace a digital-first mindset. And with that, I want to start off asking this question to Anand and Abhishek, both from Vedantu and Topper. Given that this is one segment which has seen incredible monstrous growth, what is the kind of trend that you're seeing with respect to the speed and agility that customers are expecting from you? Let's go with Anand first.
So it's actually both ways, right? The vectors of customer experience also have changed, Karthik, in EdTech, right? Previously, when it was only one vector with respect to online education or live tutoring for Vedantu, now since during the pandemic, we have become the primary source of or the primary partner, academic partner of the students, right? We had to bring in a lot many more vectors with respect to the overall experience. Just to give you a perspective, experience for us, specifically for Vedantu, it has 2 meanings to it. The first one is student engagement, that is maza aega. Second one is learning engagement, which is samajh aega, right? And believe me, both of these aspects are critical in order to achieve the final objectives of the student. With respect to this want it now, it's more so in I want it now everything. I want more engagement in my teaching. I want Vedantu to understand all my academic needs as well as non-academic needs. I also they also look forward to helping us through their academic journey through the year, right? And from that particular perspective, it has been challenging, especially with respect to also the increase in the volumes as well, right? So putting all 3 aspects into consideration, it has been a challenge. I would like to believe, and what the numbers shows us is that we have not only met but exceeded with respect to the engagement, the kind of promises which we have made, right? We have not only met them but surpassed them. and the idea is to kind of keep improving on that going forward.
Abhishek, what are your thoughts on this? Agility and speed?
Yeah, yeah, Karthik, to answer your question, this trend, this wanted now trend is very dominant in the tech sector.
Yeah.
We were always present and interacting with our customers via digital channels. But basically, if you consider EdTech, there are two sets of customers for every order that we punch in. One set is the parent, the other set is the student. Now, before pandemic, what used to happen was whatever incoming concerns or queries were there were primarily from students. And for them, a TAT of 48 hours or even 72 hours worked very well. I mean, they were very happy with that. With the pandemic, the work from home came in, and the parents were at home always, and as a result of which they got more involved with the studies of the children.
That's right.
So during the pandemic, the incoming queries and concerns, the number of queries and concerns increased from the parent side.
Yeah.
And parents were not ready to wait. They wanted, whenever they raised the concerns, they wanted the resolution right on that day. So earlier, 48 hours that used to make them happy. During the pandemic, even 24 hours was, less. So, yeah, but then again, basically, driving CX basically involves all the key functions of a company, of the brands. It's just not the CX team. So the way we scaled it, and I would like to believe that we did well there, was that we set SLA targets for every function. And we took deterrent action against the function if the SLA targets were not met. And the senior management was completely in line with driving and elevating customer experience. And customer experience vertical was given the go ahead to take action. And that worked very well for us. So.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I want to quickly move to Angad and Hina again from MobiKwik and Kotak, where speed is the name of the game, right? So Angad, what are your observations? What are you seeing? How are you adapting?
Yeah, hi Karthik. Thank you for the question. Well, let me start by quickly putting it in perspective by just taking you, a few years back. When any one of us who call a customer care number for, let's say, a bank or a telephone service provider, we'd be doing something else alongside because we know that, it's going to take 10, 15 minutes and pressing of a bunch of the numbers, and then you finally may or may not get to a customer care agent. And even if you get somebody after 10, 15 minutes, you'll be transferred around because they won't be the right person. You never get that lucky. You don't get the first person at the right first go. But, fast forward to years now. Now the businesses do not have that luxury to have that kind of service. You got to deliver right at that instant. You get a minute too late and, you see yourself being obliterated on Twitter. That's how competitive it has gotten. And this is while, 5 years back, I think it would have started like a service differentiator between two companies. One is giving an instant resolution and that's why they're doing better. But now everybody is. Now everybody's striving to get to that level where most of your queries are self-service. Then the remaining you leverage technology to automate as much as possible because the customers don't want to wait, and they're rightly so. As a customer, I'm happy that change has happened, but as responsible to deliver that service is something that is a challenge, and it is continuing to get serious with every passing day because of the technology that is available. And it's a great time because I think the kind of technology that is now available when we're looking at conversational AI, it's both in chatbots as well as voice AI that's coming up in multiple languages. It also is a great opportunity for businesses to drive their costs down while increasing their customer experience. This is like a best thing possible. You just drive the cost down by automation, but also at the same time are able to plug that automation in such a way where it's seamless. A customer does not even realize of what query they need to talk to a human being and what query they're okay talking to a bot who has the sufficient answers for them. So this is what I think is the change, and it's a welcome change. Obviously, all of us leaders will we'll need to work together, and we'll just make that change happen across industry and have that expectation for the customers met. But that's a great and exciting time, is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are your thoughts here? You are in a space where we are seeing incredible innovation. We are seeing a lot of new age players like Upstock and Zerodha kind of disrupting the market. So how are you looking and thinking through this, and how are you adapting and ensuring that you're delivering great customer experience for that?
So I think when it comes to stockbroking, obviously, there are two aspects to it. One is you have a trading platform which is absolutely stable, and you cannot just afford to miss even a second of a customer, because in case, so prior to this, when I was in retail, so I know that, if a customer doesn't get anything on our website, they have like multiple options. They can even walk into a nearest store and go ahead and buy it. But that's not the case when you're in banking, or, when you're in stockbroking, right? So number one, you have to obviously, like I said, in terms of talking about want it now, you have to make sure that you have stable platforms. That's number one. Apart from that, because it's finance, and it involves a lot of risk and regulations, etc. So you're required to complete the customer's KYC, in-person verification, etc. So you then have to have, apart from that, you have to have services in place such that they do not end up putting their time in mailing documents or going through a long form filling processes, etc. So I think this is what we realized. Like, for example, I'm sure as kids, all of us went to banks to deposit money or even withdraw, for that matter. I don't think so, the generation that we are talking about today, anybody has done that. But they are still able to transact. And I don't think so, the teenagers these days, even if they are spending money, I really don't think so they have really spent cash. Like, I don't remember when was the last time I spent cash. So this is how things are changing, right? And obviously we are also evolving, changing, and we are seeing things around. So we need to first obviously understand that if this is what we are expecting from ourselves or services and brands, and this is exactly what we need to do as well. So at Kotak, from last specifically 6 months, we've been involved in identifying where are these places where customers may end up spending more time in case, if they need any service. And we obviously did this, with a lot of data analysis. We ourselves went through the entire journey. And then wherever possible, we reduced the need for physical forms or the need for the customer to visit the branch, and try and make these available, number one, online. And then, we are now evolving to making that self-service for customers.
Wonderful. Awesome. Right. So we're going to move to the next trend that we're seeing, which is another no-brainer. It's an unassailable trend that we see, which is seamless omnichannel experiences from physical digital patchwork, right? Today, customers want the option of engaging on multiple channels, traditional, physical, digital, and it's hard to design and predict that customer journey, right? They see an ad on Instagram, they move to a website, chat with an agent, visit a store to make the purchase, and then get on social media, share their experience, right? And they expect to do all of this in a very seamless manner with context and personalization, right? So it's a very interesting trend. A lot of companies are trying to crack this. And I want to start off with Pranshu and obviously move to Hina here, because these two organizations, Jubilant and Kotak, have always operated in an omni-channel kind of a construct, right? But what I want to understand is the last 2 years, are you see an acceleration on this specific front? What are you doing? How is the innovation happening in your organizations? I'll start with Angad here. And sorry, I'll start with Pranshu.
Thanks for the question, Karthik.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, we've seen a tectonic shift with respect to customer demands. Since pandemic, when people, I being in Jubilant Foodworks in the QSR space, a large part of our interaction was happening physically, in store when a customer used to walk in. With pandemic coming in, all of us were locked inside our houses. The consumer, buying behavior shifted to digital largely. However, we also saw a steep shift on consumers, wanting for a better and a quicker resolution. And, which in turn, our phone calls, because there was a mix of phone calls and chats, coming to us on our bots. We saw a, 40% higher shift to bots from an adaptation perspective. And the phone calls went almost, they reduced by about 30-35%. That's one. Second, was the expectation of being omnipresent. When you walk inside a restaurant, there's a person talking to you, and he's able to identify you, greet you. He would know about your order history. With the customer expectation, when they moved, they would want truly omnipresent as a experience now. If he's going on Twitter, he's going on Facebook, he's coming to the bot, he would start a journey, and if he's leaving that journey and moving to some other platform, he would want that specific journey to start again. That is one big shift which we've tried to resolve, and we've been able to do that successfully for quite an extent. And we saw a huge improvement in our CSAT scores during this pandemic period, because we were able to now resolve quickly. There is the physical friction that happens, when you interact with a person. There could be communication skills, there would be mood swings, behavior issues. When you talk to a bot, or you're virtually talking to somebody on social world, there it's only communication skills that matter, and the speed of resolution that you're able to do that. I think the customers have started to demand that, and this has become a new normal, as Angad said. So that's where we are. And with the speed of answer, here at Jubilant Foodworks, what we do is, on a very simple principle, address your customer issues, pitch him the right service, serve him the right order, and repeat. That's the basic principle that we follow at us.
Excellent. Hina, your thoughts in the stockbroking context? How are you thinking through omnichannel?
So I think first, for omnichannel, for me, omnichannel is, and for Kotak, of course, it's understanding what it is and understanding the right touch points where you need to use technology. Yeah. Because I think a lot of technology can also get confusing at times for customers, and they really wouldn't want to talk to machines at all times, right? Sometimes there's really a specific need for them to be able to reach out to an associate. So as an organization, I think it's important for us to first identify where do we need to put the right kind of mediums, etc. So for example, in a stockbroking structure, and the way it started for traditional brokers like us, we initially had only like a RM model where there'd be an RM or a dealer assigned to you, and you would trade through them, and you would do that via phone call, etc. But now that has changed. The shift has moved to trading through a platform. However, the customers, I think, still need a blend of it, because even though you have a combination of customers, but the young people sometimes may still want to talk to others, and so I think there's a need for these RMs to now have a technology or an application or something right on their phone where they are able to connect these two things for the customer. And that is the reason what we are trying to do right now is, for these RMs, the only source available is, they either call or WhatsApp these customers. However, the same customer, when they reach out to us on the business WhatsApp or the chatbot that we have on our website, they then get different answers and different experience, right? So there's a need for these two, to marry or match each other. And I think that's where the customer will truly get an omni-channel experience, where they are getting the same answer everywhere and same experience. So, and I would personally like to, mention Freshworks here, because this is from my experience. It has been that, but applications like these would really help you achieve. And I think as companies, we should try and use these technologies at our advantage, and take it from there.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you for that. And I'm glad we're recording this session. All right, so I just want to move on and transition to our next trend, which is messaging and mobile-first conversations redefining delight, right? Today, customers appreciate asynchronous conversations, right? They want to have conversations at their own pace. They want to use the app that they have. We are seeing an incredible proliferation of WhatsApp as a channel and a medium of communication. There's some study that said 70% of WhatsApp users prefer WhatsApp and see it as the most convenient way to engage the brand, right? And obviously, messaging comes with its own implicit advantages of reduction in costs and reduced call volumes, right? So we're seeing an overwhelming shift to these channels, right? And the familiarity and the convenience that this channel offers is just incredible. and can't be ignored, right? So I want to open it up to this panel and kind of solicit all of your views, starting with Anand, and take us through the trend that you're seeing and how your organizations are looking at it.
So, so messaging and mobile first conversations have become, I believe, the primary way of resolving and reaching out to the brands, or has become a primary mode of interaction between the brand and customers, right, Karthik? So of course it definitely solves the cost problem for us, right? It also brings a lot of scalability to us. It also gives us a lot more control and predictability to the overall delivery of the customer experience, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So definitely for brands, this is a great win, right? But if I change it, if I look at it from the customer perspective, believe me, it's a win-win situation for them as well, right? Majorly because there are 4 aspects or 4 vectors, as I believe, with respect to customer experience or delivery of good quality customer experience, right? Accessibility, to be able to reach and talk when you want, the way you want, right? About the topic you want to talk about, right? And even customers, right? Nobody wants to, as Angad was mentioning, that you never get to, 2-3 years back, you could never get to talk to the right guy who can resolve your problem in one go, right? The idea is to change that, right? So accessibility, it definitely provides many more channels, right? And much more intelligence helps them to reach out to the brands the way they want to and whatever they want to talk about, right? The second one is speed, right? Close to 70 to 80%, and I'm telling you from my experience across multiple brands with whom I have been associated with, right? 70 to 80% of the queries are OCRs, which is on the call resolutions. They are simple information about the services. For example, for Vedantu, it is primarily about teacher availability, right? It is about the pricing, right? It is about the class scheduling, right? So what we have been able to do is we have been able to speed to those resolutions. You don't have to wait, right? Because all of these have been coded, right? The third one is the resolution quality, Karthik, right? And one way we have been able to kind of achieve the quality, and Angad was mentioning that, right? Better customer experience at lower cost. Cost is very good for brand, right? But for customer, it's a resolution quality.
Absolutely.
If I'm able to not only predict, right, but prescribe you the next 3 resolutions which you primarily might ask for, and give you that context and enable our platforms to actually listen to those and probably tailor your experience, not only when you're talking to chatbot but beyond the chatbot as well. So that has been a great win for us, Karthik, and you're aware we have been partners with Freshworks for a while now, and this has been a lot. This is really helped us kind of deliver on our customer experience despite increase in the quality. The fourth one is the empathy part, right? We're still learning on that, I believe, but as chatbots are getting much more smarter and smarter, right? I believe that going forward, we would be able to kind of harness the power of technology towards better empathetic resolution, right? Much better. But it has definitely improved in last 3 to 4 years.
Absolutely. Well said. Abhishek, your thoughts on this? Then we'll move to Pranshu.
Yeah, so basically, I believe that we have to be where the customers are. So, I mean, the idea is to make it effortless for the customers to, interact with the brand. So what we observed here at Topper was that we had our own chat platform and we used to interact with customers, but then the engagement with the customers was not up to our expectations. Maybe, I mean, the messages would be sent from our side, they would not respond. Or it was not, it felt like it was not comfortable for the customers. They were not keen on, interacting with Topper on its own chat platform. For starting queries, sales queries, it was still fine. But then for paid users, that was not the preferred mode of communication for the customers. Luckily for us, just before the pandemic, we had started a pilot on the same lines, and we started using WhatsApp for communication. And the NPS that we were monitoring closely, that increased by more than 100%. And that gave us a go ahead to, scale the things up and opt for a different chat platform like WhatsApp. By the time pandemic actually imposed lockdown in the country, we were already interacting with our customers over a channel that they preferred.
All right, understood. All right. Pranshu?
On mobile first conversations, as I just said, that we saw a huge shift from voice as a channel wherein customers would call up, go through a complex IVR or a voice bot as well. They shifted largely to a chatbot, which is an in-app based conversation. And our bot is largely around decision making. It takes decision on its own, and we build this around the pandemic so that you're not dependent on a human to come and resolve your query. Of course, there are deflection points, as Hina said.
Yeah.
Wherever bot is not able to, or in case if your overall sentiment the meter starts going down, basis the AI, it hands it over to the agent. On WhatsApp, and I'll just talk about one number. SMS versus WhatsApp, when you try and reach out to your customers and how, what is the adaptability percentage there? How many people adapt to SMS versus WhatsApp? So some 5 years, 6 years back, the response rate on sending an SMS to consumers would be around 12%, 13%.
Yeah.
Today, it is like less than 1%. That's the kind of ROI that you will get when you send out an SMS. But on WhatsApp, we did a pilot, from a sales perspective and also from an experience perspective. We saw roughly about 25% adaptation from customers, wherein they would want to interact and they would come back again and again. It's the ease of, customer access that you give it to your users so that they stay connected with the brand. And once you're able to put that linkage in place, I think the entire customer journey, loyalty, all of that grows step by step.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Well said. Amit, your thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next trend.
Yeah. So yeah, well, like Abhishek said, I quickly second that you've got to be where your customers are. So yes, WhatsApp is something that you need to leverage to your advantage. However, how I look at it, the target, the focus for us is primarily just to make sure that we reach that stage of automation first, so that the interactions to the customers are very interconnected. Unlike my friends from EdTech and you go from e-commerce interactions, there is a larger profit share of your revenue that you make, right? We make cents on a dollar. We are a fintech company. Now, our interactions, we want to keep the costs down as well. So what our focus is, the target will be that, bring 80-85% of the queries to a self-service point of view, maybe 14% to, leveraging AI, conversational AI. And then for that 1% escalation, that's the remainder of the queries. Yes, then we come to a point where we want to interact through WhatsApp, or we want to keep the interaction to our app. We obviously want to encourage our customers to use the self-service first, and any interactions that go beyond that, unserviceable, they go to WhatsApp. And yes, WhatsApp is the channel that we need to leverage for our customers, because we don't want to make them inconvenient and tell them to come every time on the app they have an update. We should be there where they are. Mostly, we are spending 2 hours every day or more probably on WhatsApp. So yes, interaction with your brands on WhatsApp makes sense.
Absolutely. With this, I'm going to move on to our next trend, which I think is very, very, very critical, and organizations and leadership are looking at it very, very carefully and very thoughtfully, right? Which is agent empowerment drives customer delight, right? So today we know that agents have had to face the brunt of the pandemic-induced upheavals. Their lives have been disrupted. They've had to deal with soaring query volumes. They have to increasing customer anxiety. They have to adapt to a new remote work environment. So leaders are starting to recognize this, and they're trying to prioritize their well-being, right? And they're also looking at technology to tackle the real threat of burnout, right? And empower employees to become agents of delight. I want to start with Anand, right? Because I know this is one segment, the tech segment, where we've had explosive growth. Your agent, your customer service teams have just probably grown manifold. How are you looking at employee burnout, and what are the things that you're looking at to ensure that they're equipped and empowered to be effective and efficient, and not having to face the brunt of some of the disruptions they're seeing?
Right. So Karthik, at Vedantu, if you see, as I have been mentioning, right. So there are two primary sets of queries which we get, right, or customers reach out to for two primary sets, right. The first one are academic ones, and second one are non-academic ones. Non-academic ones usually related to their user IDs, their logins, their the product, the prices, the subscription, and all, right. In those particular cases, right, it depends on what kind of queries are coming in, and what needs to be kind of said, right. One very important thing which we have been able to do with the help of Freshworks, right, is that we have been able to build the context for that particular query around that particular student during that particular journey point. For example, somebody coming out to figure out how can he book a demo, right. We provide as many details as possible to the agent, right. What that helps is agent is able to understand the customer a lot better. What does that mean is, in terms of cognitive as well as interactive quality goes up, right, and hence our agents and our partners, right, they are able to provide better resolutions and have more intuitive interactions with the students or the parents, right. On the academic side, right, those are usually related to doubts, their schedules, right, teachers and other academic features with respect to test assignments and replays and stuff, right. In those particular cases, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to kind of get more proactive than reactive. So of course customers are reaching out to us, but then since we have a great understanding, right, being in edtech space for 7 years, gives us that a kind of amount of data and access to intelligence and tools, so that we would be able to predict a lot more with respect to the questions and the kind of interventions that are required, right. So if you so right now, if you see, right, 60 to 70% of the academic interactions right now are done through rule-based engines, and those rules are directly based on how the student has interacted in the short term, which is like last 15 days, last 45 days as midterm, and long term in terms of where does he stand with respect to his engagement and outcome again, right. Now so these are the parts which we are trying to build an environment around agents, so that we give him the best chance to have the right kind of interactions at the right time in the right way, right. The other ways what we have been able to do is, or what we are trying right now, is able to kind of give them access to the best kind of tools and technologies through which they don't have to put in a lot of effort. And of course the capacity planning and all the other plannings we have increased to ensure that that we give our agent the breathing space, so that they give the best experience possible.
Absolutely critical. Abhishek, your views here on this?
So primarily we did three things. One was go for the chatbot and the voice bot. We noticed that there were many processes wherein manual intervention was not required. And even for the normal queries, obviously the first line of contact could be a bot. And then if things escalate, or only if manual intervention is required, then our agents come on the call or on chat. And I think that works. So voice bot and chat bot, obviously with careful understanding of the education sector and the needs of the customer. Second thing is exactly what Anand pointed out. Earlier we were reactive. We used to react to concerns from customers. But then we changed our approach from being reactive to being proactive. We carried out, in fact, we do a lot of data analysis at the back end. We study the customer's behavior, and we try to predict an issue before the customer raises it. And in fact, we try to resolve it before the customer points it out. Now, once you resolve one such issue, multiple issues from various customers, they get resolved at the same time.
Right.
So that reduces the volume. Third thing was, having strict deadlines for our agents, because, when work from home was there, the reporting managers also thought that everybody is available at all times, 11 o'clock in the night, 12 o'clock in the night, right? So impose strict working hours. No agent was supposed to, pick up calls from office after his shift was over. And I think that led to, we talk about customer loyalty, that led to employee loyalty. And in fact, for the last 2 years, we've seen an all-time low attrition rate in the CX vertical as a result of that.
Wonderful. Amit, from an agent and an employee productivity and enablement standpoint, what are some of the things that MobiKwik has looked at to get better at productivity and through enablement?
The focus again, as Abhishek said, that the focus again is on automating as much as possible, right? And then having the agents have all the tools and the accesses they need so that the to and fro finishes. Like, we don't want our agent to have to depend on certain information from a different team, maybe a tech team or maybe another team. And that access to information, if can be available on their panel, these are the gaps that empower the agents to handle the queries right at the first go, which is FCR, right? We are trying to get to a level where most of the queries are FCR, are resolved in the first contact, and then recognize, it doesn't end there. The cycle doesn't end there, because then the actual process excellence work starts. If you have so many queries that are being handled on the first resolution by an agent, then why can we not automate it? So it's like you start from one process, you initially just put a cluster together for all the information to be accessed by one single point, and then try to automate that point. So this is what we are looking at. We're trying to do both these things simultaneously and not follow a channel. Like, we're just trying to optimize the service from this end as well. Also looking at all the queries that can be self-served, trying to do that at the same time. So yes, empowering agents, and then that is only the first step that helps us get to the automation bit.
Absolutely, yeah. And Hina, your views on this? The context of your organization.
One of my favorite questions. It's obviously everything that Anand, Abhishek, and Angad mentioned. Apart from that, I think there's one thing that we need to think about is what stops the empowerment. So, for example, at Kotak, at least for the part that I handle, we do not have something called as AHT. We don't want to limit the amount of time the customers, the employees spend with customers while talking to them. And we've also, made certain principles when they are on the call with customers. So, for example, no AHT is one of those. And then we tell them, you never say no to a customer. No matter what they are asking for, don't say no. And if you think you cannot provide that, just raise your hand, and a supervisor will walk up to you and then, try and see what can be done. Third is, we make sure that the query that one of the associates received, the closure of that query remains with the same associate. And I think that really helps, because that way they know, that way for the customer also, there's, one single point of contact they've been speaking to, the associate knows the context, etc. And I'm sure there'd be challenges with such model where, if there's absenteeism, where people leave, etc. But I think that's why we have these CRM systems for where the entire conversation is available. And I think the last thing is, what we really encourage is, we encourage the behavior of the associate trying to help a customer. So when we have these quality associates, right, when they listen to the calls, even if, the call did not follow all those parameters of was there an opening given, closing, hold, etc., we really don't keep such parameters so strict. However, if there was an intent seen by the associate, of helping the customer by the associate, so we just reward them and say that, you did an excellent job by trying to help the customer. So this has really helped us, build a customer-centric culture within the associates. And because they know that, their behavior will be rewarded. So I think that has made a big shift to us, and that's how the empowerment has actually come within. So there is, I think, where they take the initiative of trying to learn new things and, knowing all the answers because they know they're going to get rewarded if they, really resolve it then and there.
Absolutely. Anshu, your final thoughts before we move on to our last trend.
So, Karthik, with us, the speed with which we would answer a customer played a very, very important role, still plays. Our endeavor is to reduce the talk time, when you're talking to a customer, by giving him the right set of empowerment. And how do you give that empowerment? There is a function A and function B sitting at a remote location who can possibly give you information around the payment gateway or the transaction failure or what went wrong basis a certain SOP or processes which are laid down in the system. We've tried and we're still trying to club everything in the form of an API, if I can use a technical term here, club it together in an easy to understand panel and give that one click option to the agent that you can take a decision to go ahead and resolve the query as per the customer demand. And in case if there is a denial that you want to do, then there is enough data basis his historical behavior, with us. Is it this one person who comes back again and again and keeps complaining about something? However, his frequency is very, very high and he keeps ordering. So he likes the food. 30% of the time he has an issue. So you give him a differential treatment. But all that has to be pinned on a screen so that the agent does not take that decision. We try and follow that route because humans tend to make mistakes. They can be an excellent orator when it comes to communication skills and saying sorry. But when it comes to making a financial decision for a consumer, we would want to rely on our own SOPs and systems. And this is how you should do that. Then second thing that we are trying to do in the bot system is to get a picture-based AI. There's a lot of consumers who would share their experience based as a picture. They'll share an image of a broken product, let's say. Now, was that a 5-star product or was that a 2-star product? Is there an engine that can understand and give a score to it and say, the customer is legit no matter how many times he's come back to you. So let's go ahead and resolve that query. These are the two large issues that we've solved to an extent, but we're still trying to resolve. And the third one is, how do you predict? Now, there's a customer who's reached out to you on a New Year, 8 p.m., asking for his food to be delivered, in the next 45 minutes. Now, New Year, basis real-time data analytics coming from Google, the weather, the rush at the restaurant or the load on the system, you should be able to predict how long will it take for us to deliver that delight to you. And in case if you're informed well in advance, the anxiety level goes down and the consumer is really happy. Else, it's mostly, a blind shot from the agent perspective saying that, we get it delivered ASAP. So predicting both.
Absolutely. And Pranshu, I think that's an excellent segue into our final trend, which is experiences are moving from automation to prediction, right? And I read this somewhere, it says smart bots automate smarter bots can predict customer behavior. And we're seeing a very tangible improvement in CSAT for organizations that have managed to crack this, right? And there are various elements involved in it, starting from automating firstly the right kind of queries, and then the aspect of learning that comes into determining the quality of conversations, right? And then transforming how agents work through enablement, right? So I just want to open up and start off with Angad here and talk about some of the things that MobiKwik is looking at to drive that, the prediction angle of improving customer experiences.
Yeah, so the good thing is that the kind of problems that we're facing right now are that our business is growing fast and on a speed which is not even anticipated. So at this point, we're just targeting as much as automation as we can, right? And when we get to a point, I think while we are working on it constantly, around the clock to make sure that we reach a point where we can proudly say that, we have leveraged automation to the maximum extent possible. We're working, then we obviously start working on the prediction model, right? When we are when we have the bots that are being trained, the machine learning is getting smarter and smarter in 6 months, 8 months, maybe it takes a year to realize that we can actually now use the complete potential of the training of that machine that has happened over the last 1 year long conversations. So yes, this will be in the future for us when our chatbots and our voice bots become so smart that leveraging the previous interactions, they can now predict what is the next thing that the customer needs to hear. What is the next thing that the customer will probably ask for, and have that solution right away. That is something that will come sometime in the future for us for sure.
Absolutely. And Anand, what are your thoughts and views on this? The predictive angle that we speak a lot about nowadays.
I mean, it's a very exciting field, and given that I also kind of take care of the data analytics and
That's right.
the charter here, right? This is one of the key areas which we which makes the whole customer experience thing fresh and exciting, right? So from an overall perspective, Karthik, right, primarily agreeing with Angad here with respect to this is bound to happen, right? With respect to previously it was just about automating the operations part, and what now you're trying to do is you're trying to take the tactical decisions for the customer with respect to what kind of assistance and what kind of product and what kind of interactions he need to have, right? I believe that from a app experience or digital experience perspective, right, majorly because that is the focus, and that has been the revenue generation channel for the brands. They the kind of technology and the prediction and AI ML technology adoption in those parts have already kind of started and penetrated really deeper now, right? It's hard to see an app, for example, which doesn't have a recommendation engine, right? So I believe that is where it starts, right? Because it starts giving you ROI right away, right? But then as the understanding of the CX, right, and as the ROI models and the understanding of the return, right, would start happening, our understanding would keep on developing. I believe more and more such processes or interaction would start going into this AI ML prediction ranges. Right now, for example, as I was saying, right, we are able to predict what kind of interactions needs to happen or customer will have, right? Both with respect to not only prediction that this will happen, but prescribing that this should happen with the student and parent, right? It's time already that parent should know, how well how is the student doing in our classes, and what do we think about, where should we go about it, right? So many a parts we have started doing that. Having said that, not all those interactions are still manual, and they're still rule based. They are not really deep learning models, right? And this is, as I said, right, I started with that, right? This is make the whole customer experience game, if I can call it that, much more exciting, because I believe that this would bring in a really step jump with respect to how our customers treated, and how do we fulfill their expectations with respect to driving the right customer experience.
Absolutely, 100%. Ina, your thoughts on some of these predictive analytics, next best action, and all of these things.
So for me, I think this is it's obviously an organization level. It's a big thing, right? Because this actually is deciding what your customer's life cycle is going to be with you. Exactly. And you most probably are going to be using this with those customers who've stayed with you. They are there with you. So for example, for stockbroking, right, our target market right now is and I think that's for most of the stock market companies, because I think there are hardly people who trade. So you first want the customers to start investing. Then you would want them to move to becoming a trader, and then maybe like a futures and options full-time trader or something like that. So if you want to do that, you want to make sure that you know what you're doing, and it is obviously also aligned with, I mean, this requires a lot of data analysis, and you have to at least pick last 1 to 2 years of data to see on their own how have the customers shifted. and now where do you want to direct them. So using this rightly, and I think only once you have matured enough in automation and you're sure of the systems or the processes that you're using, that's when you can now think of moving into having your systems predict and I think influence the behavior of your customers, and maybe then you try and upsell or have them start using something that maybe they haven't. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think for Kotak, I think we are still learning this, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Abhishek?
Yeah, so I believe, Karthik, that automation will satisfy customers. Prediction would delight customers. Take the example of Netflix. It carries out analysis at the back end, and it predicts the movies or shows that I would want to watch. It knows me better than, I know myself, my preferences, what type of shows I would want to watch. And that delights the customers. I have hardly interacted with, Netflix customer experience agents. It all happens, at the back end, and it creates a delightful experience. Nobody calls me to renew the subscription. I do it myself. At Topper, what we do, we have this, we have invested into machine learning and AI. Now we understand in education, every student is different. The levels are different, right? You might have a very intelligent student, you might have a below average student, right? Now we understand that for a particular topic, a student has to reach from point A, that's the basic level, to point B, that's the expert level. Now we personalize the experience, we predict what level the student is at, basis, the answers, the test that we take on our app. And basis that we decide whether a student would take 10 questions to reach to point B, or would he require 100 questions to reach point B. And that is what we do. And I think it's loved by the customers, because they know that, when we predict and, personalize things for the customers, it shows that the brand cares for them. That care translates to customer loyalty, which in turn translates to revenue. Could be fresh sales revenue or renewal revenue.
Absolutely. And Pranshu, your closing final thoughts on this?
So, we have kind of started the prediction journey already. And for obvious answers. So, the automation has taken a pie in almost every function of customer services and, allied functions to it. Now, questions or issues wherein that, your 70% of your issues or concerns or queries lie under a specific ambit. We've tried automating most of it. Now, wherever we have a strong hold on the automation part, and we are able to resolve customer queries, basis that data insight and a market research, we've started to move in a very, very small pocket into a prediction model. That I know that 45% of my users would only talk about this as their problem statement. Now we've automated it on voice bot, chat bot, there's some empowerment given to the agents. But how do you delight your customer? Because that at this specific pivot point, he will come back to you and will ask you about the same thing. You give that delight. So that's where, the delight factor comes in, as, Abhishek said. We are trying to do that. Prediction is a little more complex, as said and practiced today in the market. So I think we learn and unlearn here. That's what I would say. The other, one aspect that I did not talk about from a ease of access from a customer standpoint. One of the other things that we've done to give basis data analytics and insights, we saw that a very large part of consumers go to Google, search your customer care number, and reach out to you. Now, we are experimenting with giving a chatbot option there as well on Google Maps and on Google engines, so that you don't really have to download and install my app. In case if you're just doing a Google search, the customer service number of XYZ organization, the Google bot will pop up, and there you'll have an agent, and of course you have your engines and everything with a very smart deflection.
Wonderful. Absolutely makes sense. All right, I think we're at the top of the hour. I just want to see if we have time for one question from the audience. And I see one interesting question is, how are we thinking through tier 2 and 3 cities, right? I think the question essentially alludes to inclusion and how are we able to deliver great customer service to the last user, right? Especially given that the Indian market is very heterogeneous. How are we thinking through ensuring that delivering great customer experience through, let's say, multilingual platforms, etc., to tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities? I'm just open it up, and any one of you can just volunteer to answer.
I'd like to take this.
Sure.
So I think for this very reason why, omni-channel is still there, right? Because if it was only the need for digital, where, if we had customers only who use their mobile app or are on their mobile phone, then there wouldn't be a need for stores or branches, etc. So, and if we observe generally, banks or financial institutions specifically, I mean at Kotak also, we are targeting to open more branches in tier 2 and 3 cities, because we know that these are the customers who would like to walk into the branch, speak to people instead. And I think for this very reason, we still have contact centers and RMs as well. So until and unless like literally everybody in the country is now using only the digital mediums to communicate to your brand, then I think there wouldn't be a need for you to have physical branches, etc. So yeah, I think these factors are definitely considered while taking these decisions and determining, like I said earlier, also the various touch points that you want to keep depending on your type of customer, and you let them choose what do they want to, how do they want to reach out to you.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts? All right. There's just one thing that I need to do before we close out. There is an audience poll that I would request the attendees to take. It's going to take about 20 seconds. ET team, you want to pull up the poll? All right. I think with this, I want to thank my panelists for spending their time sharing their thoughts and perspective. I found it extremely insightful. I'm glad we had such a wonderful panel who are practitioners and who've been doing this and doing it really, really well. With that, I'll hand it over back to the ET team to take it home.